Being mindful is easier sometimes than in others. For example, it may be easier to maintain mindful awareness while driving, working out, or listening to music, but it can be a lot more difficult to keep that same awareness if you're in an argument with a partner or a confrontation at work. Today on Mindfully, we're going to talk about some ways to maintain mindfulness under pressure, why it is so important to, and how exactly you can integrate mindfulness into even the most stressful of situations. But let's start out with why this matters so much. To put it simply, to be aware of your emotions is to have control over your actions. What I mean by this is by noticing anger, anxiety, sadness, or ill will, you can moderate your behavior to act in a more stable, rational way. Who among us hasn't looked back on an interaction where they were upset in the moment and thought, man, I made myself look silly? By simply knowing you're upset and taking the time to notice that, you've already got a leg up on the situation, and you're a lot less likely to make yourself look silly. One of the greatest benefits of mindfulness is the increased self control you will gain over every aspect of your life. Let's take an example from my own life. When I was working as a server, I got called into the office one time because of a bad review. Now, the review was silly, and both my manager and I agreed, but not before I made myself look foolish by overreacting to the news. Ultimately, nothing of value was lost, but it did make me re-examine my mindfulness at work. If I had been able to notice the anger arising in the moment, I might not have flipped some papers off the manager's desk in a moment of lost self-control, because I could have directed that energy somewhere else and not have made myself look like a fool at the same time. I think this situation really shows how maintaining mindfulness, even under pressure, can have drastic impacts on your life. For example, I could have been fired for my overreaction and have had to struggle financially and go through all the stress of finding a new job. Really not worth it for one bad review. So we know how much it can help, but how can we integrate mindfulness under pressure? Well, the most effective method is time. If you train your mind to always be focusing on maintaining that mindful awareness, it will naturally carry over into high pressure situations. However, there are also a couple of ways to help yourself out. The first technique I like to use is recognizing physical body sensations that correspond to negative emotional responses. For example, anxiety in the stomach, fear in the legs, and sadness in the chest for me. As always, your body may be different, so it's important to take some time to learn how your body responds to stress and pressure. Now, when I notice that physical sensation arising, I know the emotional one probably is too, and I can make better choices based on that. Another technique you can use if you know you're about to go into a high pressure situation is to tell yourself out loud, I will maintain mindful awareness during blank. You'll be amazed at how powerful simply setting intentions is. Now that we've talked about both the reasons to maintain mindfulness in stressful situations and some of the techniques to achieve it, let me hear what you think. Have you ever seen someone acting foolish because of a negative emotional response? And what tools or techniques do you use to maintain mindfulness? I'm Sam, and this is Mindfully. Subscribe if you learned something.